What's up YouTube, it's your boy Swing back again with another video. So today we're going to be creating a serverless website um, hosted on AWS. So we're going to be using AWS services to host our serverless website. So this is a diagram of the architecture. So it's a very simple architecture we have right here. So we're going to be hosting our static website on an S3 bucket, and we're going to connect that static website to API gateway, and the API gateway is going to be added as a trigger to our microservice function, which is going to act as the backend, which is going to be a Lambda function. So um, without further ado, we're going to dive right in. So we're going to go ahead and create our Lambda function. So let's go to the AWS console. So we're going to go to Lambda. Here we're going to go to create function. We're going to call it serverless backend. It seems like I have that already, so I'm just going to call it serverless backend too. For the runtime, we're going to use Python 3.8. For the execution role, AWS by default creates an execution role for your Lambda function when you create it on the console. So for this particular tutorial, the permissions granted to the role by AWS is good enough to take care of all the actions we're going to be carrying out. But for your personal project, you can go ahead and create a new role and give it the required permissions. So we're going to check advanced settings. We're going to leave everything as default and create our function. It's going to take a couple of seconds to create. So once it gets created, we're going to continue. So our function has been created. So if you go here, we see the default code which AWS assigns to the Lambda function. We have our default code, which is all going to be displayed in my GitHub account. So you can go ahead and clone my repository, which will be posted in the description below. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go to GitHub. I'm gonna go to this Python file. We're gonna copy this and we're gonna replace what they have here. So this is a very simple Lambda code. So basically what it does is it prints "keep being awesome DevOps learners" to the screen whenever this Lambda function is invoked. So very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. So we have our Lambda function with the custom code ready. So we're going to go ahead and create a trigger. Click on create trigger. There are several services you can use to trigger your Lambda function, but in this scenario, we're going to be using API gateway. So for API gateway, we're going to go create a new API. We're going to use HTTP API. For security, since this project is a simple project we're doing, I'm just going to go use open. Additional settings, you have to pay attention here. This is very important. So we have to enable cross origin resource sharing. So from the description, as you can see here, basically what this does is it enables our S3 static website to be able to call the API URL, which is going to be created once we're done here. So without these, your AWS static website is not going to be able to call API gateway. So make sure you enable this, and everything else, the default looks good. And now we're going to go ahead and add our API gateway trigger. So our API gateway trigger is added. So we have our Lambda function and the trigger. So next step from our architecture is to create our S3 bucket. So we're going to go to S3. So we're going to go to create bucket. I'm going to give the bucket a name, serverless static website. I'm just going to add a bunch of random characters just to make it unique. Cool. Next thing is enabled ACL. So we have to do this to be able to make our objects public. We're going to disable public access, acknowledge that. Everything else looks good, and we're going to go ahead and create our S3 bucket. So our bucket has been created. We're just going to view details. So here we're going to enable static website hosting. So we'll go to properties, scroll all the way down to static website hosting. We click on edit, enable, host a static website. So I'm going to put in the name of the document, so I'm going to upload it for our static website. So I have the index.html and error.html. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and save changes. So before we upload the index.html and error.html documents, we're just going to go ahead and see what the code is all about. So for the error.html, it's very simple. It just prints this to the screen. There has been an error. So that's that. For the index.html, we have JavaScript right here. So basically what this JavaScript function does is it makes an HTTP request to this URL right here. So this is also a very important step in this tutorial. So in this code, which you're going to get from GitHub, you have to replace this URL with the URL of your API gateway trigger. So if we go back to Lambda, to our Lambda function which we just created, so this is the URL for our API gateway trigger. So if we open this in a new tab, we're going to see exactly what the Python code does. It just prints to the screen, keep being awesome DevOps learners. So you need to copy this URL and place that in here. So this function just basically makes an HTTP request to this URL, and this URL in turn invokes our Lambda function. So here in the body of the index.html file, we just have a header which is going to be printed on the screen, hello cloud learners, and then below that is a click button, and what this click button does is invoke the JavaScript function which we have specified above. So that's a very simple index.html file. We're going to go ahead and upload these to our S3 bucket. So go to objects, upload, add files. We're gonna do this one, open. Go to permissions and grant public access. This is important to be able to make our objects accessible to the public. So go ahead and upload this. Once these are uploaded, our static website is completed. So we're going to go to close, go to properties, and scroll all the way down. So this is the URL of our static website. We're just going to click on it and open in a new tab. So paste this here. We'll see Hello Cloud Learners, like we saw on the index.html document, and we have the click me button. So if you click on this button, we see keep being awesome DevOps learners. So this is going to wrap it up for our tutorial on creating a simple serverless website. And we're just going to go and do a recap. So we're going to go back to our architecture. So what we just did was create a static website hosted on our S3 bucket, created an API gateway to act as a front door to our backend Lambda function. So this is going to wrap it up for this session. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and comment below. And I'm going to be seeing you on the next video. It's your boy Swain again, signing out. Peace.